My talk today is called Your Truth, Your Life. It could just as easily be called Your Life, Your Truth, because we can get to the absolute truth within us when we experience our life to the fullest. The way that the divine, the love of the universe has always intended. It is our birthright to live our lives as authentically as possible. And this requires some gentle inquiry and curiosity about our own lives. You know, we may be skimming the surface, maybe not expressing or living our truth. When I think about this idea of discovering our truth, I was thinking about this and I was reminded of this story that I love. Some of you may know this story. So, the great American painter, Jackson Pollock, was a major figure in the art world. Michael Walker, you will know this, you artist, you. In the abstract expressionist movement, he was known for his technique of pouring splashing paint. Do you know what I'm talking about? On these big canvases. And this was known as the drip technique, which he created. It was a completely original idea, and it was groundbreaking, and it inspired artists all over the world. In fact, for decades, art schools all over the world taught this drip technique, and it was taught as this sort of random kind of technique where you splash paint onto the canvas and see what happens. His contribution, whether you are a fan or not of his work, was immense in the art world. So in 1947, Jackson Pollock created his very first drip painting, and he called it Alchemy. And for 6 decades, it hung in Peggy Guggenheim's home in Venice, Italy. And you know, in those days, they didn't always protect art behind glass. So over the 6 decades in Peggy Guggenheim's home, this Pollock, the first drip painting, was, unprotected. So the ravages of time landed on this original painting that was so crucially important to the art world. Just the grime and dust and cigarette smoke. Remember those days everybody smoked? And so all of that got onto his masterpiece. And his masterpiece, as it was hung in Peggy Guggenheim's home, was gray. It had black and gray and white splattered paint all over it. However, in the year 2015, a group of scientists and world-renowned art restorationists began the arduous year-long task of restoring the painting. And as they carefully and they patiently excavated layers of dust and grime and life off the painting, what was revealed was extraordinary. The first thing that they discovered through sort of 3D scientific technology was that Pollock's paintings, his technique, drip painting, there was nothing random about it. It was actually done on a grid, and every area where there was splattered paint was thoughtfully done. Nothing random about it. It was thoughtfully done. It was also discovered that as they continued to peel back the layers of this painting, it had color underneath. 19 colors to be exact. And so this original masterpiece that everyone thought was in the gray neutral palette exploded with color. After the restoration project was complete, the truth was revealed. Everything in that painting, everything was intentional. It was a completely different experience once it had been lovingly restored. An entirely new painting was hidden just beneath the surface of what we knew. And I love that Pollock called this painting alchemy. The definition of the word alchemy, a very simple definition, essentially means to transmute something common or less than into something greater, like gold, or in our case, spiritual awareness. And like Pollock's painting hanging in Peggy Guggenheim's home for so many decades, we too, my friends, can unconsciously go decades with our truth and all of its beautiful colors and nuance underneath layers of protection. And I know that it can be scary sometimes to peel back the layers of that comfortable neutral gray palette. We may be afraid of what we find because, in fact, every layer is a discovery that changes us. When we discover the truth and greater truths about ourselves, we are changed. So just like the painting called Alchemy that hung in Guggenheim's home for 60 years, we too have an opportunity for our own alchemy, to look in the places within our own life that could use a little excavating. Anybody? Anyone? Perhaps there is a truth within you that has been over time weathered or covered up, either knowingly or unknowingly. And we have an opportunity in our spiritual community to reveal our truth, whatever that may be, and then to follow its wisdom. In our teaching, we call this living our divinity. We understand that the capital T truth is God, is source, is spirit, whatever word you're comfortable with. And living our truth is living our divinity. And I will say that living our divinity always involves caring for ourselves and caring for others. Always, always. The famous 17th century astronomer and physicist Galileo wrote, "All truths are easy to understand once they are discovered. The point is to discover them." All truths are easy to understand once they're discovered. The point is to discover them. We get to discover our truth here in this community. So in the safety and nurturing energy of this beloved place, let's do a bit of spiritual discovery about ourselves. Let's discover together some deeper truths, what might be underneath a layer or two. Are you with me? All right, so I created an acronym for the word truth to assist us in this particular process, and it is truth to reach under the heart. Truth to reach under the heart. And what I mean by this, to reach under the heart, is that most of us equate our heart with that place of love within us. Our soul, if you will. The etymology of the word soul comes from the Old English word sawal, which means the spiritual part. Our soul is the spiritual part. So for the next few moments, we are going to move into the spiritual part. We will reach under the heart, if you will, to that place within us that is God, that is love, that is indwelling grace. So I invite you here and those of you at home to please just take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you're comfortable, or if you prefer, just fix a soft gaze on a point directly in front of you. And I'm going to invite you again, only if you're comfortable, to place your hand on your heart. That place where love lives within you, unconditional love. That place within you that has never been harmed or hurt in any way. That place within you that is spirit. And taking in another deep, nourishing breath, I invite you to feel this unconditional love at the center of your being. Allow yourself to feel the spiritual part of you, your soul, that still small voice within you, the indwelling spirit of grace and goodness. And just taking in another deep breath, I invite you to silently and gently ask yourself, is there an aspect of my being that has been like Pollock's painting, perhaps buried under time or grime, that is wanting to live in full color? Is there a part of my being, any aspect of my being or life, that is wanting to live in full color? Another way of asking yourself this is, what part of me, deep down, is wanting to be fully expressed? What part of me, what truth of me is wanting to be fully expressed? And just listen to the wisdom of your divine response. And now, I invite you to gently and lovingly give yourself full permission to express this aspect of your being. Full permission to live into your truth in an even deeper way. And when you are ready, I invite you to take another deep, nourishing breath and return to this space, the room that you may be in, feeling refreshed and revitalized and inspired. Inspired. So often, we move through life on automatic pilot. My invitation to you today is to notice where you can infuse more color and vibrancy and truth in your life, in your daily life, and watch your soul, your spiritual part, that part of you that is divine, express itself even more. This is our birthright. All of the ancient faith traditions across time talked about this and taught this. All the great faith traditions. We are here to express the divinity, the unique divinity that each one of us is, but that requires that we peel back the layers of the gray painting that we may be living in. So I want to continue connecting these dots, utilizing a different angle, going deeper in a different way, this idea of expressing our truth. So staying with this idea of revealing your truth, all month we here at NTCSL have been talking about the fact that we are celebrating our 20th birthday. Yay! It's our 20th birthday here at the New Thought Center for Spiritual Living. After service, we're actually going to have cake and fruit downstairs. If you're here, I invite you into that. And as I was thinking about this milestone of 20 years and how far as a community we have come, we have an online community now. Hi, everyone. We've come so far, and we've moved through so much. I thought we would look at this milestone individually. So I invite you to think back 20 years ago to 2004. How old were you in 2004? Oh, we were babies. We were babies. 2004. Where were you living? What were you doing with your time back then? Perhaps it was a certain job or raising children, or you were in school, or you might have been deployed. Who were the people in your life at that time? That will also jog your memory. Who were the people in your life at that time in 2004? And now I invite you to consider, who were you back then? Who were you? What was your truth 20 years ago? Were you on a spiritual path yet? Think about the people you surrounded yourself with back then. I always told my daughters when they were growing up, you become like those you surround yourself with. Are those people still in your life? Maybe you outgrew some of those people from 20 years ago. That can happen when you're on a spiritual path, and it's okay. It's okay. You know, I chuckled when I was thinking about this myself, because 20 years ago and change, I mean, a little more than that, but I was sitting in a pew in a church in North Hollywood taking the very class that I am going to be teaching on Tuesday night. And I remember sitting there crying a lot. Now, back then, it was called Foundations, and it was 3 months long. That's not why I was crying. It's now 6 weeks. So, but I had the opportunity to really lean into, when I was taking that class, the spiritual truths that I was uncovering and discovering and what I was unlearning. I know that there are many of us here who grew up with perhaps a little bit toxic religiosity, not everyone. But I remember sitting in that class 20-some years ago and hearing for the very first time that the entire universe had my back. What? That God or spirit or love wasn't an old man in the sky, but the energy of unconditional love. And it was available for me exactly as I was and exactly as I am. Think about where you were 20 years ago. For me, 20 years ago, I was filled with longing for some sort of spiritual understanding that made sense to me. I had an inexhaustible longing to understand why bad things happen to good people and where God fits in all of that. I wanted to raise a family in a spiritual community that was healthy and progressive, that was dedicated to social justice and guilt-free. I wanted a liberal, progressive spiritual community. I had no idea that existed. No idea whatsoever. And I remember crying with joy when I discovered that there is such a place. New thought. There is such a teaching, new thought. What about you? When you consider where you were 20 years ago and who you are today, what are the differences? Where have you already, in the past 20 years, excavated those layers of gray that were covering up the truth of your being? I don't know about you, I have too many things to count of how much I've changed since 20 years ago. But if you track it, my love, you will see all the ways in which you have grown in the past 20 years, and they are directly related to truths that pointed you in positive and healthy directions. Right? Yes. And now, fast forward 20 years, here we are in 2024, and I want you to consider truly how far you have come, how much you have grown, and how that truth you learned about yourself along the way, how that truth propelled you to be sitting right here or listening wherever you are online. Maybe for you, the truth within you over that 20-year journey, maybe you knew you wanted to go back to school or go to school or move to a new place or start a family or retire or quit a habit or an addiction. Maybe for you, your truth along the way was completing a relationship that was toxic or no longer congruent with who you had become. There are so many truths within us that propel us forward, and so often we miss them. I spoke last week about this journey of ours, making the unconscious conscious. This is that. These truths, my friend, could also be called divine guidance. When you are divinely guided by the still small voice within you, that is God, Spirit, love, source, quantum consciousness at work within you, nudging you forward into your next chapter, your next great becoming. And we are all here for it. Are you with me? Are you here for it? Yes. And can we just take a moment and celebrate how far you've come? How far you've come. In 20 years, how far you've come. And let me tell you, individually and collectively, we have so much further to go. As a country, as a world, we have an opportunity to grow in our own truth and then to walk that truth of inclusivity and oneness, raising up those that are experiencing injustice, doing our holy, sacred work, helping to make this world a better place. We say it every single week. This is connected to that journey. And this is why we have incarnated here. This is why we're here. This is why we are here in this time. The spiritual maturity that you, my friends, have gained over the years is exactly what led you to this very place, at this very time, to continue your holy path of living your life as consciously as possible. And each of us gets to walk this journey of love, and what a blessing we get to do it in spiritual community. So this week, I invite you to be with the part or the parts of yourself, the truth of you, that has perhaps been underneath the years of time or those layers, that wants to be fully expressed. That place underneath the heart, the soul, the spiritual place. I invite you into that this week, to stay in this beautiful idea of what truth within me is wanting to emerge for a greater expression of my life in full color. And at the same time, I invite you to celebrate how far you have already come, to let yourself celebrate who you are today and who you are becoming. What a blessing to be on this journey together. What a gift in this life.